Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Dan Labbe with Mary Kay Cabot here on a Tuesday. It's about 3:30 recording this, and we're going to talk some positive Browns vibes today, Mary Kay. We're going to talk about the Browns, and obviously I know there's not a lot of optimism out there about this team nationally and on the outside, and certainly I've talked about, I'm not expecting this team to have some amazing season this year, but they are going to play 17 football games, and they're going to try and win every single one of those 17 football games. So that kind of raises the question, and this is something that I wrote about for our 15 questions series that is going to be going up over the course of July. So I can actually give everybody a date on that right now. So I'll actually have my post on this up July 1st. So that's coming up really fast next week. You'll get to actually read that post. But let's turn this into a pod. Let's talk about it, Mary Kay. When we talk about how the Browns can win football games in 2025, what's the first thing? What's the first piece of that formula for you?
Well, I really truly believe, and I've been saying this over and over and over again, the first piece of that formula in my mind is to play clean football and to not turn the ball over, to not give it away, and then to also conversely to take it away. They've got to get that turned around. They finished bottom of the barrel in giveaways last year. They finished bottom of the barrel in turnover differential last year. And that was the name of the game in a lot of those football games. You're not going to be winning games if you're going to be turning the ball over. Now, that might sound simplistic and it might sound easier said than done. But what you have to do is there are a lot of things that come from that. You have to run the ball. And of course, when you're running the ball, you have to protect the ball, but run the ball more. If you are going to be starting Joe Flacco, he's got to dial back the interceptions and he's got to protect the ball more. Sometimes he can be now a little bit of a sitting duck back there. So you have to be careful that he's not back there, not being adequately protected and then getting the ball stripped out of his hand, because I think that happened a fair amount when he was in Indy last year. So you have to think about giveaways when you're talking about Joe Flacco. So that's one of the things that they do like about Kenny Pickett is that he doesn't generally turn the ball over a ton. I mean, he's thrown his fair share of interceptions as well, but I think they feel that he takes fewer chances than Joe Flacco does, and that they would be better off from a giveaway standpoint if Kenny were in there. So in my mind, that's got to be job number one. I don't know what the statistic is right now, but it's usually something in the neighborhood of if you win the turnover battle, you win the game 80% of the time. So they've got to be focusing on that every single practice, every single meeting. That's the name of the game.
It's funny. It's one of those things where we sit here and we talk about, we spend hours and hours just talking about this football team and talking about these games. And so often it does come down to who turned the ball over more? Like who threw more interceptions? It's almost, for folks who just finished up watching the NBA finals, right? You sit here and you watch all these games and think through them. And sometimes it's like, well, this team made their threes and this team didn't. So sometimes sports comes down to these simple things. And I think turnovers is one of those stats. And it kind of goes hand in hand with something else I want to talk about in a little bit, which is the defense. But it's stunning when you dig into this team turnover wise last year. They turned it over 34 times, which was tied for Tennessee, like you said. But on top of that, they had the worst third down percentage. So they converted the fewest downs percentage wise. They had the sixth fewest first downs per game. And no one punted the ball more than the Cleveland Browns. And when you do that stuff, it just gives you no chance. So those weren't, going 3 and out isn't a turnover necessarily, but it is giving the ball back to the opposing team. And then you just look at Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was the only linebacker that forced a turnover. Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome were the only DBs that had turnovers last year, and Newsome's came off a tipped ball from Denzel Ward. So the lack of forcing turnovers and then the lack of the ability to protect the ball, it's just kind of stunning when you look back at the numbers from last year.
Yeah, and so many times we talk to the defensive backs and the defenders, and they say, we're not going to go chasing those takeaways. We're going to play our technique and we're not going to be, looking for that interception all the time. Well, you know what? I think they need to look for that interception a little bit more than they have. You've got to have a nose for the ball. And they have some guys on this team, a couple of veteran safeties now that have played a large role in the takeaway space in their careers. So I think that could help them. And I think that when we talked to Denzel in minicamp, he did talk about the fact that he is going to be going for those interceptions. And I do think it is something he can add into his repertoire a little bit more. He's good enough at his technique that I think he can take a few more chances at trying to grab that football or grab it away from the receiver after he catches, whatever you have to do, force some takeaways. So they have to do that from a defensive standpoint. I think Miles needs to get more sack fumbles. I think all of them do. Maybe Mason Graham can force some takeaways this year. Maybe Carson Schwessinger can do the same. Maybe Alex Wright, now that he's back healthy, can do that. So they have to take the ball away. That's how you establish yourself as a fearsome and dominant defense, by taking the ball away and making sure that those offensive players know that you are coming for them and you are coming for that ball and you're going to get it. So they have to adopt that mentality. I don't know what else they can do. Maybe they need the gold chain or something else to inspire those takeaways. And then the giveaways, they've got to cut down on those giveaways. They absolutely have to cut down on those giveaways. Now they're going to have two rookie running backs playing most of the time and a rookie tight end in Harold Fannin. And those guys are going to have to make sure that they're on point in not giving the ball away and making sure that they're in the right place at the right time. Last year, there was a lot of passes thrown to Elijah Moore that were picked off. But I don't blame Elijah for that. Or for some of those, because a lot of times they were throwing jump balls into the red zone for him, and that's just not going to fly. So, you might want to use your bigger, taller offensive guys in some of those situations so that they're going to win those contested balls. Harold Fannin and Ced Tillman and David Njoku. And they have to do that, and then they have to hang on to them. And then the quarterbacks, they've got to cut down on those picks and don't take low percentage risks and shots. There will be explosives. Again, if Joe Flacco is out there, he's going to fling it down the field and he's going to look for Jerry Jeudy. And Jerry's also talked about that winning the contested ball hasn't always been his forte, but he's just going to have to be good at that. He's going to have to get really, really good at that. That's something that Amari Cooper prided himself on. And it's something that Jerry might have to also add into his game more of this year. These guys are going to have to win when it comes to those kind of passes, and also on the defensive side, win when it comes to all of their matchups.
Yeah, and just I'm thinking about the defensive side of the ball still a little bit here too with these turnovers. So you look at the safety position, and I almost wonder what's happened the last 2 years, because Juan Thornhill comes here from Kansas City. He has 2 years with the Chiefs. His rookie, or 2019 and then 2022, he has 3 interceptions in 2 separate years with the Chiefs. Not a single pick in 2 years with the Browns. Grant Delpit had 4 interceptions in 2022. A lot of those came late in the season, if I remember right. He's had 1 the last 2 years. That was in week 2 of 2023. It's like, it's not that Grant Delpit can't get the football. It's not that I feel like Juan Thornhill had the ability to get the football. I mean, we'll see what he does in Pittsburgh now that he's with the Steelers, if anything changes, or if it was just a bad signing by the Browns and he's just not the player he was in Kansas City. But I just don't understand what happened last year when it comes to, like, you can understand why they turned the ball over so much on offense. They were playing DTR, they were playing Jameis. It was just a recipe for turning the ball over a bunch. But just to not have anything on defense, it's stunning, because it feels like they have some guys that should have, at least on paper, been able to go get the football.
Well, they do. And I think one of the problems, Dan, is the fact that they have not gotten enough pressure up front from enough other guys besides Myles Garrett. I think that's a big part of it. You look at some of these dominant defenses, and you're getting pressure from everywhere and you're getting sacks from everywhere. So if they really are getting to the quarterback on a more consistent basis and from more angles and areas than just from Myles Garrett's side, then I think you're going to have more mistakes by the quarterbacks that these DBs can capitalize on. And this year, I think they believe that they have solved this problem in part by adding Mason Graham into the middle there at defensive tackle. And again, this is a new phenomenon for him to just go, to take those chains off and just go forward and get into that backfield and try to get to that quarterback. But they've got him in the middle that he's going to do that. And then if Mike Hall gets back in a timely fashion, he'll be next to him doing that. They're expecting more from Alex Wright, some combination of Alex Wright, Isaiah McGuire, Obo on the other side. So if they dial up the pressures and the pressure and the sacks and all of those kinds of things, then these quarterbacks should be forced to get rid of the ball quicker and in ways and times that they don't want to. And there should be more opportunities then on the back end to capitalize.
Okay, so you touched on this a little bit when it came to the offensive turnovers, but let's kind of shift this a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball. And one of the things that we've talked so much about is this offense looking a little more like a Kevin Stefanski offense, what we saw in those first 3 years. So I've kind of thought to myself, okay, so what were the things that I really remember from that? And like, it doesn't mean that they're going to turn and hand the ball off 40 times a game and it's going to look like football in 1985. But obviously they're going to run the football. And I was thinking about time of possession because I just remember when Kevin Stefanski first got here, he was so good at controlling the clock and putting together long drives. It was something the Eagles were good at a few years ago when the year that they went to the Super Bowl but lost. So I looked it up. And they were first in time of possession in 2023, fourth in 2022, eighth in 2021. And the worst of those years, they were 11th in 2020. Some of that can be misleading because sometimes time of possession is like you were winning the game and running out the clock. So there is a little, okay, how real is that? But this kind of harkens to something Myles Garrett said when he first started floating out the idea of wanting to get traded and maybe not wanting to be a Cleveland Brown. And he said that part of the formula is having a time of possession running game offense. And it feels like the Browns are going that direction, Mary Kay, where Kevin Stefanski is their offense is going to be able to control the ball a little more than it did in the past. Some of that is just turnovers, like we just talked about. Sometimes maybe this is just all going to come back to stop turning the ball over. That ability to have an 8-minute drive or a 6-minute drive that just breaks the back of an opponent or kills the first half, you score, and then you get the ball to start the second half. Some of those little things that they were so good at with Kevin kind of early when he got here, I feel like they're going to get back to that a little more. And I think we are going to see, yes, you want to have explosives, and you love the one play long pass touchdown drive. Those are great. But I feel like we are going to see a little bit more of this team kind of controlling things offensively than we did last year.
Absolutely, 100%. And it's going to start up front. And I think the philosophy will be instilled very early by Mike Bloomgren on that offensive line. And those guys can't wait to get out there and do a bunch of run blocking. So they're very excited about it. They're getting back to more of the Bill Callahan way of doing things. And last year, they obviously got away from that. And there were injuries. The tackles were injured a lot. And so it didn't quite work out the way anybody thought it would. So it starts up there with the philosophy up front and getting back to the Kevin Stefanski sort of Bill Callahan way of doing things. And then you add in a Quinshon Judkins, who he looks to me like he has an opportunity to make fans feel a little bit less nostalgic for Nick Chubb. I think he's going to have some Nick Chubb vibes to him and some Nick Chubb traits to him where he's just got that explosiveness and that power and that speed. And I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see how he handles this as a rookie right from the jump, because he's going to be the bell cow. There's no question about it. And, can he do it? I think he's going to be able to do it. I think that's the position in my mind that is the easiest transition from college to the pros, is to play running back. So we'll have to see how that goes. But the early returns look really good on that. And then you have the change up with Dylan Sampson. And Dylan, fast, explosive. He is so much smaller than I thought he was going to be when I see him out there. But just a small, shifty back who brings that home run hitting ability, who can catch it out of the backfield and provide that nice change of pace. So I do think that they're going to rely on the running game more. And if they decide that they're going to start Kenny Pickett, I think that would be one justification for it, that you are going to run the ball and then get those two big tight ends out there and throw the ball horizontally to them, let them get their run after catch, and then take your occasional shots. So that can be a formula for winning. Don't turn it over. Shorter passing game, get it into the hands of your big guys with the yak. Run the ball down people's throats with Quinshawn. Change it up with Dylan Sampson. Take those shots to Jerry Jeudy and just keep it rolling.
So we know offensive linemen love to run block. That's like their favorite thing. And so just having that ability to lean on a team for, again, whether it's one drive, whatever it is. I think there was a Steelers game. It was like a Thursday night Steelers game. It was one of Kevin's first years where they just came out on one drive and they just ran the ball over and over. They basically said, go ahead and try and stop us. And that level of physicality, I think, has been lacking over the last couple of years. Just that ability. Again, you don't have to run the ball 40 times. It's not 1985. But that ability to take a drive and just say, we're going to lean on you for the next 6-7 minutes. And good luck. Like, Quinshawn Judkins loves it when he starts sensing that you guys are getting tired. Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller and Ethan Posick, they love it when they get out and pull and they can sense those D linemen and those linebackers getting tired. Like that can change a game sometimes if you can just have a lengthy drive that just wears a team out. And it's something the Eagles have sort of made their bread and butter over the last few years. Is we're just every now and again we're just going to put together this long, exhausting drive, and it's just going to knock you guys out.
Well, the running game is sort of back in vogue. I mean, for a while, the running game was just an afterthought. And as we know, the NFL is very cyclical. Once you start to catch up to more of the spread and the 4 wides and 3 wides and those kinds of things, then it's time to turn the tide back a little bit and get back to maybe a little bit more of the running game. Some teams, of course, have never gone away from it to any great degree. But as you mentioned, the Eagles, Saquon Barkley, look what he was able to do. The 49ers have always stuck right with it. And I think the Browns are going to get back to that. Now, the last 2 years, they did not have Nick Chubb for all intents and purposes. The 2 years ago was his injury year, and then last year was his coming back from injury year, and he only played half the season, and he wasn't the player that I think he will be this year. Much better for the Texans. But now they have that 1-2 punch. And let's not forget about Jerome Ford either, because I saw a renewed vigor in Jerome Ford in spring ball. And they used him a lot with the first team. I mean, there were times where they had Jerome out there running with the ones. So I think he's been a little bit rejuvenated to think that, hey, not only did they cut my pay in half, but they went out and they drafted 2 rookie quarterbacks. And I'm over here raising my hand and saying, do not forget about me because I can still do some things. So I think that they've got a really good running back room right now, and they're going to use it, especially if they end up starting a Kenny Pickett or really any of them. They're going to use this running game, and I think it's really going to help them. It's really going to help the defense. And I think it's just going to keep everybody involved in these football games.
Okay, so the other thing I had here for this formula, we talked a little bit about this just in the turnover section, but to me, I think if this team surprises people and they make a playoff push, it's going to be because this defense looks like it did a couple years ago, and it looks like one of the best defenses in the league. Now, obviously, it's very different. We don't know who's going to step up at those edge rusher spots. They need a couple young guys to step up there. Linebacker's a little iffy because they don't have JOK, which, kind of throws a wrench into things. So you hope that Carson Schlesinger gets up to speed quickly. Maybe Jerome Baker has a nice year. Jordan Hicks stays healthy, all of those things. But if things kind of go right at some of those positions, this defense could potentially get back close to where it was a couple of years ago. And I think, to me, if obviously turnovers, like I mentioned, is always kind of the answer to the question. But I think if this defense is as good as it was a few years ago, that gives you a chance to again, have that ball control offense. You don't have to score 30 points to win football games. And you can just lean on that defense and let them kind of carry you. And I feel like early in the year last year, that's sort of kind of what they were trying to do, right? They won that ugly game against Jacksonville, and then they played, they were this close against Philly. They were this close in some of these other games. If this defense can just dominate again like it did a couple seasons ago, that goes a long way to being a really good football team.
It really does. And I think when you look at this defense from last year, I can see a lot of room for improvement amongst a lot of the different individuals on this football team. I think that Grant Delpit can take his game up to another level. I think he's got another gear that he can hit. And the further away that he gets from his own Achilles surgery, which I know it's been a few years now, but the further away that he gets from that, I think he'll just continue to get better. I think he expects more of himself this season, and I think we'll see some of that. And then we know that Martin Emerson took a few steps back last season. And I know that Martin is determined to get back out there and live up to his potential. I always thought that he had Pro Bowl potential. I still feel like that. I mean, you just take one look at him and he just looks the part. So he needs to elevate his game to the point where he's back just being able to strike some fear into the hearts of some of these receivers and have a really, really nice season. Those are a couple of guys there. I think the outlook looks good for Ronnie Hickman, as he is probably going to either start or get a whole lot more playing time with Juan Thornhill gone at safety. So he's someone that I think can create some big plays and do some things there. Very anxious to see what these two veteran safeties have left in the tank and what they can bring to the table. They're both 31 years old. They've been around for a long time in terms of Casey and Jenkins. But these guys are savvy veterans in sort of the Rodney McLeod mold. And I think that could possibly go a long way. And then, as you mentioned, the linebackers, I mean, this is an opportunity for Carson Schlesinger to go out there as a rookie and really make some eyes pop, because the Browns are so excited about him. So let's see what he's got. And then, same thing for Mason Graham. He's the number 5 overall pick in the NFL. I think he's got something to prove. Let's see what you have. The Browns traded away from Travis Hunter, and so the spotlight is going to be on Mason Graham to see what he's up to. And then I always think that Miles has another gear. If everyone just elevates their game by 10%, they should be a much better defense.
Yeah, and then there are a lot of ifs there. And some of it is, again, I think this is a big part of this season, is some guys are going to have opportunities, right? Like now Carson Schlesinger is a guy that he's got a long-term outlook. So even if he struggles a little bit as a rookie, you're not going to give up on him. But, you mentioned a Ronnie Hickman, right? Like, okay, Ronnie, here's your chance. Like, show us that you belong and you're a part of the future. And if he's not, guess what? They'll go address that position in the offseason, either in the draft or spend some money on it, something like that. And I think the same goes for those edge rushers. They're throwing a lot of young guys at that position. And if one of them emerges, great. Like, show us you belong here. Show us you're a part of this future. And if not, again, that's where one of those first round picks goes. Or maybe, again, you spend some money over there, something like that. So I think that's what's interesting about this defense is you have your established guys like Miles and Denzel Ward. You have your draft picks like Mason Graham and Mike Hall and Carson Schlesinger. And then you got a bunch of guys that, all right, here's your chance. Like, you guys have been in this system for a little while. Some of you have had success, some of you haven't, but show us you're a part of this future. And, here's your tryout. This is a season-long tryout for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. The last thing that you want to be on a defense is just a guy, okay? That's the kiss of death in the NFL if you are considered just a guy, Jags, okay? You don't want that. You want to be somebody that can stand out, can make an impact, and then you hit the jackpot too. I mean, you make your money if you can go out there and create turnovers and make big plays. And one guy that we really haven't talked about very much because we haven't seen him very much is Mike Hall. I mean, he's a big X factor here because the Browns spent a second round pick on him last year, had extremely high hopes for him last year, and he wasn't able to be on the field because of a suspension and some injuries, including a season ending knee injury for which he underwent surgery. So I don't know exactly when he's going to come back. It's been shrouded in a tiny bit of mystery in terms of what exactly the knee surgery was. I'm not 100% certain yet what kind of knee surgery he had. Do we know that, Dan? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't think they've
I don't.
told us exactly what it was.
I don't think they have either. I've kind of asked around a little bit, and I'm having a hard time trying to figure out what that was. So looking forward to solving that mystery a little bit. But if he can come back strong and if he can live up to their expectations, then he's somebody that should be starting to challenge for some Pro Bowls over the next season or two. That's what you want for a second round defender. You want them to end up making an impact, making Pro Bowls. So I see a lot of room for improvement just in the guys that have been here for the last couple of years.
Okay, there we go. A very optimistic Browns podcast for everyone. Their formula to win, because look, like we've said over and over again, this team is going to try and win football games this year, and they're going to try and surprise some people and make a playoff push. And I do think there is a formula out there for them, and it's a very difficult schedule, so who knows? But at least early in the season when they're healthy, I think there's a formula for them to steal some wins and put themselves in a position to at least not be talking about the draft by Halloween. That's really what we want. We want to wait to talk about the draft until January. So that'll do it for this edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Our Instagram is Orange and Brown Talk. Our Twitter is Orange Brown Talk. Our YouTube, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. You can watch full pods on there if you want to. And of course, our Football Insider subscription. It's at cleveland.com/Browns. The blue banner at the top of the page. Mary Kay, I'll talk to you later.
Sounds great.